Am I the a-hole for reverse revenge cheating? I, 25F, am telling this story as it occurred at the ripe age of 19. I had a dream about it recently, and it got me thinking about it again. So here it is. When I was 19, I got my first boyfriend, and boy, was I head over heels for this man. I felt I truly loved him and wanted to be with him for the rest of my life. I was 19, and he 18. Was your average run-of-the-mill blonde-haired, blue-eyed douchebag, but he was hot, and sleeping with him was the best I'd ever had at that point. We dated for about 6 months or so. During that time, he cheated on me with a total of 5 girls and one guy who was previously my best friend in high school. I mean, he made me so dirty. I spent $200 on Valentine's Day gifts for him one year, and he turned around and re-gifted them to one of the girls he was cheating on me with. He assigned each girl a fake guy name and would ask me to drop him off at their houses regularly, unbeknownst to me, of course. It reached a point where he would take my car to go see them while I worked or slept. Eventually, I found out, but ultimately, I took him back every time because I was genuinely hooked on him, no matter how badly he treated me. I wouldn't admit the true reason to myself until years later, but why? In short, it was very, very big. This all came to light one beautiful summer's day. My 18F best friend attended a birthday party for her 2M nephew at a relative's home. I received a Snapchat photo of my boyfriend walking in with a new 18F girl on his arm, who was also related to the 2M birthday boy. She introduced him to everyone as her boyfriend. The photo I received was captioned in quote, "Girl, you are not going to believe what I just witnessed," in quote. Cue meltdown. I took it well, I think. I didn't hold any grudges against anyone except for him. Ultimately, these other people owed me absolutely nothing. He owed me his loyalty. Simple as that. He rationalized his behavior by gaslighting proper usage check me and saying that we were never technically in a relationship, which is technically true. We agreed on not putting a label on things, but we agreed on being exclusive, expressing our love for each other regularly, etc. We were dating, but without actually calling it dating. Regardless, he continued a relationship with his new girl. This girl then went out of her way to harass me for months and basically rub her relationship in my face. She would call me restricted to say really mean things to me, poke fun at the fact that I am black and they're both white on social media, talk about how he would never be with a insert racial slur, things of that nature. I mean, she really had it out for me, despite the fact that I never did or said anything wrong to her. Eventually, my ex moves to another state, and they continue a long-distance relationship. One day, the new girlfriend called me to berate me with insults, which resulted in me audibly crying on the phone, to which she and her friends laughed at me and continued to humiliate me until I finally hung up. That was my breaking point. I decided at that moment that I would crush her false confidence by any means necessary. My ex, being the scum that he is, tried to stay in contact with me. I ignored him until I hatched my plan, then I began talking to him again. He told me he missed me and wanted to see me, and honestly, I was dying for a little, in quote, closure, end quote. So, I agreed to drive 4 hours each way to pick him up and bring him back to our hometown. Upon arrival, we hooked up immediately in my back seat. We spent the next few days together at my place, being absolute jackrabbits. As much as I hated him, that was the one part one really missed. But don't worry, I had ulterior motives. On the second to last day he was there, he asked me to take him to his girlfriend's house. She had no idea he was in town. We arrived at her apartment complex and hooked up in the parking lot before he went inside. He spent a day with her, then I took him back home the following day, which included 2 to 3 more quick sessions during the drive. The 4-hour drive quickly turned into 6. I blocked him on all social media immediately after leaving his house. Finally, I could put my plan into action. Every single time I slept with him, I secretly took a photo of him for proof of the act. I had amassed more than a dozen photos and one particular video where I made him admit that I was the best he'd ever had. 6 years later, this is still true. He still tries to contact me for this reason. I then calmly made a Facebook status detailing every part of the last week I spent with him, attached all of the photos, and put emphasis on some of the awful things his girlfriend said to me previously. I tagged her in it and waited for the eruption. It didn't take long. I watched her scream, cry, and violently throw up on Facebook Live after that. I turned it off after I heard her say something along the lines of, end quote, "How could you do this to me? Outside of my house. And with her," end quote. Most satisfying sin I've ever committed in my life. Looking back on it, I can't say I regret getting my lick back, but I would have changed the way I went about getting it back, rather than weaponizing my own body. But goddamn, did it feel so good? I wish I could have screen recorded that live stream. Was I wrong to do that? TLDR. Reminiscing on how a few years ago my serial cheating boyfriend dumped me for an awful girl who went out of her way to bully me and target my race, very confidently asserting how much better than me she was and how I was disgusting. And he would never want me. I chose to take revenge by sleeping with him 15 plus times and then publicly exposing non-explicit photos and videos of the acts in order to return the favor and humiliate her, as well as vindicate myself and redeem my self-confidence. At the time, it felt great. Now I am not so sure. My wife, 28F, of 7 years has cheated on me, 34M, in the most horrible way possible. I love my wife dearly. She's a gorgeous, sexy woman, and she's the pride of my life. We've been married for 7 years. Our sex life is not what it was when we were dating, or even the first 2 years of our marriage. After giving birth to our daughter 5 years ago, she went through a bit of postpartum depression, something I felt she was able to overcome with time. One thing she never recovered was her appetite for sex, and our relationship, in that respect, became quite boring. I tried countless times to be romantic and spice things up. I went as far as taking her on cruises and booking romantic weekends, which included spa treatments and massages. Although she appreciated my gestures, they didn't do much to improve her sexual appetite for me. I learned not to push her, because when I did, she got angry, and that just drove us further apart. I did manage to convince her to go see a therapist about 6 months ago, after noticing that she was even more distant than usual. During our first session with the marriage counselor, she confessed that after her pregnancy, she lost all interest in sex. It just doesn't appeal to her anymore. No desire at all, she said. The therapist recommended she see a psychiatrist and a physician for treatment. She refused, no matter how many times I begged her to do it. I admit that I became numb to feeling unwanted physically. She is a caring mother, and she cares for me too, just not physically. That happens maybe once a month, if I'm lucky, and it's more of a routine. I know she doesn't enjoy it. So, I basically resigned myself to living with that for our daughter's sake and to save our marriage, but that's not what I'm seeking advice for. I've been working on a project renovating the spare bathroom in our home, and I had requested a few days off from work to get it done. Yesterday morning, my wife went to work at 8 a.m. as usual to drop off our daughter at daycare. It is my job to pick up our daughter in the afternoon because I always get off work earlier and my wife frequently works late. She works as an administrative assistant at a real estate office downtown. I noticed when I went to the kitchen to grab a bottle of water, just a minute or two after she left, that she left her tablet on the counter. She always takes it with her. The same with her phone. She guards those things with her life. I never thought about looking through her phone or tablet because of respect, and she kept them always locked anyway. I noticed that the tablet had not gone into its locked screen yet, so I stopped the opportunity to look. I know it's wrong to invade someone's privacy, especially that of a person I love and trust, but I couldn't control my impulse. After touching the screen to prevent it from locking automatically, I picked it up and started browsing through it. My instinct told me to look at the text message app first, although until that very moment, I had no reason whatsoever to think I would find something incriminating there. I opened it, and the first thing I see is a message group consisting of my wife, her 2 bosses, 45 and 38, both married men, and one of her single coworkers, 30. What I saw once in the message group ended my life in so many ways that I can't really express how it feels. In between a plethora of text messages from all 4, describing very explicit sex acts and my wife's sexuality and that of the 3 men, I found photos and several videos of her having sex with not just one but sometimes all 3 men at the same time. The last one, recorded last Friday at one of the men's offices, showed her and her 2 bosses going at it. The 2 men were doing despicable things to her, things I have only seen in the most aberrant pornographic movies. She not only seemed to enjoy all of it, but would eagerly encourage them to do more, while she acted wildly. I've never seen it that way. It looked like she was possessed by the devil himself. There was obviously a third-person video recording this. He could be heard in the foreground, laughing and narrating it, as if it were a sporting event. I recognized her coworker's voice, single, 30M. I looked at a few more videos and realized that they took turns at her, and often all 3 at once. I was horrified. I took my phone out and video recorded some of these scenes from the tablet screen, knowing that she would certainly deny it ever happened, and once I lost access to her tablet, I would have no way to prove any of this. After I was done, I put the tablet exactly where she left it, and while crying, I started thinking about what I should do. On top of my wife's horrifying betrayal, I can only imagine what these men think of me. Surely, I am their laughingstock, and who knows who else they have told. She came home late, probably working overtime, sarcasm. When she came home, I ignored her, and she didn't seem bothered by my demeanor. I know I have no choice but to divorce her and take my daughter as far away from this lying, cheating monster as possible. Although it seems impossible, I also hope to find a reason to forgive her. My mind and heart are broken, and I don't know how to deal with such an unexpected act of betrayal. My question to you is, am I correct to think about protecting our daughter and myself first rather than trying to save our marriage? End quote.